Boom, 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 boom.
So I will admit, I lost the little, that cover.
Really, the sponge?
Yeah, because Jax eats it. He scratches at it and eats it. So I put it somewhere, and I can't remember where I put it.
That doesn't sound horrible.
The glory of podcasting.
Yeah. Well, and having a cat, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like he just, no matter how much you spend on cat shit, all these ads, buy this, but cats don't like any of that shit. They want the most basic shit. They want a hair tie from your girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
They want your podcast little cover thing for the mic. They want cardboard boxes. They don't care about any of that other stuff. It's all marketing and nonsense.
Probably because it smells like you. I would think, right?
Oh,
I mean, it might have. There might be something to that,
I don't know. I think he's really into texture and tactile, sensory stuff. I don't know.
My dog loves socks.
Socks? Your socks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
After a Zwift ride or what?
Yeah, used socks. She'll wait for my wife to take her socks off, and my wife will make a ball out of them and then toss the socks. And I mean, she just goes nuts. She grabs them, she takes them to the bed, and then she just kind of nestles on top of the socks. But it's
keeping it real. Yeah, I love it.
It's like a daily thing. How are you, Danny?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just trying. It's been a long week. We started the week off with a bit of a bang, and man, I'm
still recovering.
Yeah, I've been dragging.
Me too.
It's been quite. It was quite a Monday. That was Monday.
My coach is like, "What happened?
Why'd you gain all that weight? Why are you so slow?"
He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What? Is everything good, man?"
Yeah, I think I'm still a bit, I'm still a bit dehydrated. I can't recuperate from a night of,
it was a lot
of drinking and eating like that as easily as I once did. It really stuck with me for a few days.
I'm the same, man.
Mm-hmm.
We had so much fun. I don't regret it. It was awesome, but definitely a rare outing on a Monday. I definitely can't do that often at this point. But it was super fun. So thank you so much. That was great. I don't know if you want to tell folks what we did, but
yeah,
I had a great time, but definitely still getting over it.
Yeah, a friend of mine throws a spring wine tasting and pairing, food pairing and wine tasting. Actually, they're all friends, people that place called Select Cut here in the city of Chicago. It's a steakhouse in Lincoln Park, and my friend Hank, he's the wine guy. My friend Tony is the owner of the restaurant, and they pair up every spring. Well, every spring. I think this is maybe the second or third, spring wine food pairing that they've done, and I heard so many good things about it from last year that I decided, hey, I've got to go to this thing this year. Everybody said you got to go, and yeah, I mean everything they said I think was right. It was a lot of fun. The food was great. The company was good, and we had a few people there from you there, Ed, who's been on the shows there. Charlie, who used to work for me at the bike shop, was there as well. And I had another friend that was scheduled to come, but I don't think he could make it. So a nice little group at our table. And then we had, I think the wine importer was at the table. One of the importers was there, and some people from the local Chamber of Commerce. So it was and an iron worker who seemed
he was an interesting lad.
Yeah, he just heard about it on the internet and thought he'd come down, and I mean it was fun. It was fun. It was he was totally cool. It was like he was just there for a good time, and it seemed like he had a good time. So it was a fun table. A lot of interesting people, and the wine. Well, the the wine and the food was just fantastic.
The vino did flow.
Yeah, yeah. You were greeted with just walking into the restaurant, you were handed a glass of white, something from some sort of
Alsace.
an
The
Alsace.
Alsace
Yeah.
region of France, the
Yep.
east side of France near Switzerland. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the first thing, and then after that, it was just here comes the wine and here comes the food, and quite a bit of food
And
too.
it didn't stop. It just kept coming.
It
The
did
hits
not.
keep coming.
There were no empty glasses ever, and we paid for it later on. But I mean, and it's a shame because towards the end there, they brought out a couple of really good bottles of wine, some 20-year-old
Vault wine.
the vault wines, and by that time I wasn't really tasting anything, Danny. It was like I was just
it all was kind of the same.
It was all
like,
kind
okay,
of
cool.
yeah. At that point, it was just like I just needed something to keep my mouth from sticking together, and it was it was good. It was very entertaining. It was a great night. It was a great night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks so much. Really, that was so much fun, and
yeah.
had a great time. It was cool to get out and just meet new people. Unfortunately, Sarah couldn't join because she had eye surgery, and that was kind of a wild thing. But she's doing great, and she's recovering really well, so that's good. But she couldn't make it. But so I went out solo, and I'm like, Monday night. Like I haven't gone out on a Monday night in like years. I was like, when I was younger, like you go out on Monday night all the time. Like no big deal. But that was super fun. Great food, great people. The wine was amazing, and it was so much fun. So, yeah, cheers for that. But those people were great. I want to go back there and have some meals in the future. So
yeah, we can
good
definitely get back there. My friend Tony owns the joint up there, and it was he's always a really good host, and his wife Gail there. They're really nice people. They happen to live in the same town where the bike shop is. So, I mean, that, we're up in Lincoln Park, if anybody's familiar with Chicago. So Lincoln Park's way up north, and the bike shop is south. And they live probably 3 or 4 blocks away from the bike shop. So
that's wild.
Yeah. So
it was very cool. Good way to start the week.
Yeah. Well, I've been dragging all week, man. I'm not gonna lie. It was a rough. It's been a rough. I barely made it through Tuesday. I did show up to work. I've always preached to the kids at work. I'm like, anybody can party, but show up to work the next day. That is a sign of a true, party monster. And
champion.
Yeah. Don't anybody can go out and party and lose their job.
But that's easy.
Yeah, but to get up, suck it up, go to work. At least show up and do what you got to do. That is the sign of a champion. And I was able to make that happen. So.
No, that was super fun. Great to meet those really cool people. Great to social network. Definitely a good time, and God, the food was amazing. We had like a pork chop, we had like a couple of salads, we had lobster, we had steak, we had like two different like desserts.
It was insane. Yeah, it started with
there's a wine pairing with each of it with an off the boat Irishman, Eamon Byrne. I remember his name. It was like the most Irish name you can get. He had to like trademark that. Like,
was it Eamon? Eamon is the first name.
Eamon Byrne. Yeah, Eamon Byrne.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah, he was like off
and he
the
was
boat.
He was great. Yeah. He's like, oh, just come back. I can't do an Irish accent actually, which is weird. I should be able to. But no, he was just like, yeah, I just came back from Alsace. Like I was at this vineyard, literally where this one is from. Try it out. And it was amazing. He was great. And then we obviously hung out with Hank. He was so amazing too. We talked about him on the podcast before. Fascinating Chicagoan, former owner of the Vic Theater. Great events planner guy. He had great stories from back in the day, bringing in like punk rock and Dead Kennedys, and just had like so many stories. And I could talk to that guy forever. So it was super fun.
Well, that's just his music history, Danny. Like he Echo and the Bunnymen, and he really brought in a lot of very influential bands in the 70s, in the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, through the mid 80s here in Chicago, and even into the 90s, and owned a pretty influential music club. But what's also interesting is that he has a very important cycling history here in the city of Chicago, and that he he is the producer of the Tour of Elk Grove Village. He did the U.S. Criterium Championship in Downers Grove, Illinois, all those years. Like that whole run here. He did some of the big criteriums downtown, and I think he did the Sun Times Criterium when Laurent Fignot came down to do that. He's responsible for a lot of the city festivals here in town right now, and running races. So just incredible dude, and a good friend. A good friend. We've known each other for a long time now, and it's just when you get him going, and he starts letting loose. I've never really. It's only on nights like that we really get to hear all the stories. When he gets going, and he lets loose with some of the stories about the music. So even I learned things on some nights like that. There'll just be little nuggets in there. I don't bug him a lot for stories, and it's just interesting to hear, what he's done in the past. So,
yeah, he's, and the cool thing is, like, he's like the most down to earth guy. Like, he's not braggadocious. He's not boasting. No. He's, it was just like, oh, like I love this one time, this happened, and he was like super cool. So, like I said, I could talk to him all day, but bringing in some big bands in Chicago and being really integral to a lot of, like, music and, like, cultural change and evolution. Like, very like. He's a real, like, Chicagoan kind of guy. So,
well, Danny, and so it wasn't entirely a mistake of the crowd that that we had there. So it was bike shop. It was bike shop people. So it was Charlie who worked for me at the bike shop, and it was Ed who has worked for me at the bike shop and might even be doing a little bike shop work there with me. It's you who was here on my podcast with me. And some wine people and some Irishmen and some wineries and some, it's like, it's all headed in that direction. If we can get to ride some bikes and get over to Europe and drink a little wine, and it's just trying to connect all these dots. All these guys that I consider society members, Danny. That's the ultimate dream, is that we all get over there and ride bikes and drink wine and do it, surrounded by some of those places. I think that would be a lot of fun. Maybe even invite some listeners,
Yeah, twist my arm, man.
Yeah.
Get a little trip going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, meet some of our European listeners. We have quite the European contingent of people listening. Which is always kind of exciting to see them pop up on our list of downloads. So
I love that.
So thank you. Thanks for listening to this goofy show.
Two dudes rambling about bikes in Chicago.
Yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
Wine and parties and music and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That was super fun. So good way to start the week, and going out with a bang, as they say. Another victory like that, and I'm done for.
Yeah.
A Pyrrhic victory, I believe it's referred to as. But that was super fun. So what a cool way to kind of meet some folks and
we had
expand. There was actually, like, what I loved was, like, the one guy, I forgot his name, forgive me, but he was sitting just across from me, to your right. And he had the tie on and the jacket, and he was reaching into his inner jacket pocket
Mm-hmm.
on his left a couple of different times, and he was pulling out his business cards and he was passing them out, and it was like so old school. Like I loved it. Like he was just like, "Hey, here you go, hey, here you go, hey, here you go." I felt like it was a little Sopranos-esque. It was kind of fun. He was super cool.
Yeah, that was the guy who owned the cleaning. So
That's right.
Yeah, there were a lot of event people.
Nanotech what's it called?
NanoClean.
NanoClean.
Yeah, so
he was great.
Yeah, he was he was working the room. He was there, and there were a lot of people there that were working the room, and it was a great network. It's a networking event at the end of the day. At our table, It was just a bunch of friends, and we didn't really have a lot. We weren't selling a lot. We were there to drink some wine and have a good time. And you're right. But like the Chamber of Commerce president was there, right? Yeah,
the head of that, and he was great. It felt like an old school like LinkedIn. Like he was just pulling out his cards, like here you go and here you go, and that was fun. Like I didn't quite. I didn't know what to expect, but it was kind of fun. I have a couple of buddies who do a lot of that. They're always schmoozing and like connecting, and it was kind of a little bit of a throwback. I liked it. It was like fun.
That was cool. It was like I said, it was interesting. I did do a little bit of networking because I did meet those the guys from the distributors, and followed up with a couple of emails about maybe us hosting something at some point. Danny, maybe we could do something out by the shop. I think it would be kind of fun.
Wowzer! Hey, why not?
Yeah. We got a rich customer base at the shop, and we know a lot of people, and those people are always trying to get the distributors and the representatives. They're always trying to get their wines out in front of a lot of people. They're trying to get people introduced to their things. There's a lot of to their the stuff that they represent, and wine is hot right now. It's a big there's it's a big scene brewing right now, and that was a good time. And non-alcoholic spirits, Danny, huge, big growing market of that. And after the Monday that we had, I wouldn't. Well, is that what you're enjoying there? Is that what you're showing me?
I am. It's called Well-Being. It's an IPA.
Really?
And it's an NA beer. I keep these in the fridge, and they're great. Like they're so good.
Really?
Not to interrupt you, sorry, but I love the NA beer has come so far. It's kind of an interesting thing, really. So back in the day, like I always, when I heard NA beer, I thought of like just very watery, like tasteless kind of beer, like worse than like a Bud Light, but like 10 times worse. Like something I would never want to drink.
Yeah.
But they've come a long, long way. And there is one that I like. I think I wrote about this for Business Insider. They sent me a couple cases. So it's called Well-Being, one word. They're out of St. Louis, nearby. And they have they have one called the Intentional IPA, which is super delicious. I got the can here. They have another one, which I have in the fridge as well. It's the wheat beer. I'm just forgetting the name of it, but it actually the New York Times wrote about this a few years ago. So they did some study. It's got electrolytes in it, and it's like actually great for like post recovery, like rehydration. So they did some like tests with some like Olympic athletes, and they were just like actually doing better with that than just water. Anyway, there's like all kinds of stuff, but there's tons of other beers too. It's not just Well-Being. I'm not plugging them, but there are so many like really good NA beers and other drinks too. I will say that I was in Colorado, as we talked about, and my girlfriend's brother's wife ordered some NA wines because we were doing dry January, Sarah and I, and I was biking a lot and like just trying to like keep things really solid. And we're like, we're just gonna do dry January. Let's just do it. We've done it a few times too. It's always fun because then January or February comes and you're like, all right, let's have a drink. So she was like kind of inspired by us doing that, and she was like, oh, I want to check this out. So she ordered some NA wines, which I hadn't really gone into. Unfortunately, the NA wines, there was one that was like pretty decent, but a lot of them, surprise, surprise, kind of tasted like sugary, like grape juice.
Sure, yeah.
Like they just didn't really, they were kind of like really thick and like sweet, and like you were just kind of like, like they weren't that great. I think our next endeavor is to try a couple of the boozes,
The
like the
spirits?
vodkas,
Yeah.
the spirits,
Yeah.
and things like that. We'll see how that goes. But
There's
I have to say, this beer, some of the beers are like really really good. Like I'm just happy having one of these. Like I just have one of these, on a weeknight, and I'm like, I'm good.
Well, Danny, the only non-alcoholic beer that I will drink is a Buchler.
Oh,
Right?
yes,
I mean,
yes.
going back
From
way,
the
way
old days.
back in the
Yeah.
day, they were like, it's one of the first non-alcoholic beers I ever heard of was, I mean, that was back in the,
Edwin
that was,
Van Hooydonk or
yeah,
something.
exactly. Yeah. That was back in the 90s, Danny. I mean, that's going way, way back.
Yeah, Buckler sponsored
Buchler.
a very for those not clear what the hell we're talking about. Buckler was like a great sponsor of a cycling team. I think they were Dutch or Flemish or something, but they were like a huge force in cycling for years. And so I was growing up, I never knew what the hell they were. But I think these days, actually, Team Jumbo Visma is the continuation of Buckler.
Yeah. So I think so.
Like Benesto became like Movistar.
Yeah,
and all that. So like
Reynolds and
like the same kind of infrastructure and a lot of the same characters. So Buckler eventually became what we know today is Team Jumbo Visma with Wout van Aert and all these guys. So
yeah,
I digress.
Yeah, there's a brand called Ish that I hear really good things about. Non-alcoholic spirits and things. I know somebody. Tom, my mechanic who works at the bicycle shop. He's actually involved in because every cool person has to have a podcast these days. He's involved in a podcast where they do wine and
nice
and they talk to a lot of the non-alcoholic brands. They've hosted a lot of representatives. So I mean, we got to have them on the show one of these days and talk to them about that because I think that it might be interesting, of interest to to a lot of our listeners. It's become it used to be a non-alcoholic beverages used to be associated with like alcoholism back in the day, and now it's become a thing where it's more like where it's actually starting to cross over into like at the athlete world. For people who just like to hold a glass, like to be social, like to go out, but don't want to necessarily drink. And so they've got all there's this whole thing going on. In some cases they're starting to put like CBD and like infuse it with like various things to kind of calm you down, kind of give you the positive effects of what you feel when you drink alcohol without all of the side effects. So it's interesting. I mean, I think that's kind of a cool thing to look at because I certainly can't feel like I did this week all the time.
God, no, we'd be dead in like 2 months.
Yeah, I can't hang like that anymore. So, and
no, it was a lot. And as you it was fun though,
and as you observed, your training takes a dump for the whole, for the entire week. I mean, you're just kind of hanging. I'm curious to see your graph.
Literally, yeah, it's going down.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of funny how it worked out, but as a side note, so like basically millennials, Gen Z, I know they get a bad rap and there's all kinds of bullshit headlines about them, but like I think it's quite solid like research and survey data that we have that millennials and Gen Z, for example, like they're kind of like not into booze basically. So like, they're into more like you said, like CBD, maybe a little smoke, little gummies, little pot, or even just like sober, what we used to maybe call straight edge back in the day.
Yeah.
Or if they do drink, maybe it's like a Truly or like a, one of these kind of like hard seltzers,
flavored waters or like hard waters,
like something like that. Like, so it's definitely quite different from where I grew up.
Yeah.
Which basically, drinking was like part of the culture. So it's very interesting. But long story short, I love the some of the NA beers, and again, there's a bunch of them. I've had a handful. I've been experimenting, but the Well-Being I particularly like. But there's others. And then the wheat one is got like electrolytes in it. Like it's actually shown to be like better for you in terms of rehydrating you than just water alone.
Wow.
Again, I'm not going to drink like a case of it or something crazy. But I like to have one, not every ride, but occasionally, like after like a weekend ride, I'll come home, like I'll obviously chug a bunch of water during the ride, but I'll have like some water after. I usually have a protein shake. But then like if I'm feeling like, oh, I want a beer, it's like a late Saturday afternoon, like I'll grab one of those.
And is it satisfying? I mean, it gives you the
great. It is.
It is.
It is.
It'll give you what you're looking for. I mean, like after
exactly. It's just that fun social thing. It tastes great, and it's one of those things. If you told me like 5 years ago, I'd be like, nah, it's not my thing.
Yeah.
But they sent me some, and I included it in this like little wrap up article I did when I was at Business Insider. No, it's really really good beer. So basically, they make it as regular beer, and then they, as they say in the can, and they use this wording, they gently pull the alcohol out.
Okay.
So it still has a trace amount, like 0.05 or whatever it is. So, but it tastes great. Like I've had friends come over for like barbecues and stuff, and I'll be like, hey, like, close your eyes for a second. I'm like, I'm gonna pour you a beer, and I pour the beer in a nice glass. And I give it to them, and then I'm like, all right, open your eyes, like have a sip of that, and they sip it. They're like, wow, that's really good. What is that? And I'm like, that's non-alcoholic beer.
Wow.
And they're just like, shut up. And so I pull it out, and they're like, oh my god. So it's fun. No, but it's really good. I definitely encourage people to try it if that's their thing. If not, carry on.
Have you visited any of those non-alcoholic liquor stores, like non-liquor stores? There's a few of them in the city of Chicago now, where that's all they do. It's like a liquor store, but everything in there is non-alcoholic.
I have not. The only thing I've seen a handful of articles. I know the New York Times has done a handful of these. I thought there was one recently too. The upshot for me was, so there's a bunch of stuff going on, but one of them is, so there's like the beer, but then there's like the cocktails and the NA cocktail situation, the NA cocktail bars. So my thing is like, I don't drink a lot of cocktails as it is. I do like one once in a while. The one criticism that is something you see a lot is that the cocktails, the NA cocktails, are, to make them like taste pretty good. A lot of them use like a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
So they're quite sugary, which is kind of going back to what I said. Remember, I tried some of those wines.
Yeah.
Like, they're very, very sweet. I don't mind a sweet wine. I don't mind anything sweet in moderation, like a little bit. But anyway, I think that's one of the challenges. And maybe there's great people doing great things that I'm not aware of. So full disclaimer. But I think one of the challenges was a lot of the cocktails, the NA cocktails, are like crazy sweet, like super sweet, because they have to kind of compensate, right? They don't have the booze effect. So it's like, how do we hit this? Otherwise it tastes maybe like a little boring, or it's like, oh, they taste like tomato juice, or it tastes like a V1 or a grape juice or something like that. It's a challenge. I feel like the beer has been one like great success story of it. In terms of the wines and the cocktails, not 100% sure, but it would be interesting to go to an NA bar, where everyone's just like sober and like, hey, like, I think that'd be kind of cool. I can see like that being like a good SNL skit.
It'd certainly be interesting. Yeah. I don't know.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, maybe we're onto something, Danny.
Yeah, why not? Like, the future is, God, by all accounts, everything I see is like, it's just like pot. Like, people don't seem to be boozing as much as the old days. So, it's probably a good thing overall.
Yeah, there's a dispensary near me. Here in Illinois, it's legal, and so there are dispensaries, that, down the street from my house. And for the longest time, I didn't realize for a long time that it was a dispensary, because it's pretty, I mean, it's not obvious that it's not like it has a big like Cheech and Chong poster out in front or anything like that. No, I mean, the way I would, I had envisioned it looked, to me, it actually looked like, I thought it was like an urgent care or some sort of a medical center. It really did look like some sort of a like a medical office of some sort, and the parking lot was always full. And I thought, and then because it's adjacent to the mall, so it's right at the entrance of the mall, and it wasn't. I mean, until it was there about a year until I realized that was like a dispensary, a pot dispensary basically.
Right.
And it's booming. I mean, that place is always like, you can't there's no parking in that parking lot. So, like that, now that it's easy to get and legal, and, you can basically, adjust and pick exactly how you want to feel and how much you want to take. I can see why, people are maybe not boozing as much, because I think that's a lot harder on your body than it is to, take a 3 milligrams of THC and some CBD, and, have that kind of calming effect without all the side effects of the alcohol, So, interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. No,
I feel like a lot of it's like cultural and generational too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, different, we've all seen the old movies where even like, Mad Men, like, but you go back to the old black and whites, like everyone's always boozing like hard.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
Every scene, someone's got, the woman has like a champagne flute, the guy's got like a rocks glass, he's drinking the bourbon or the whatever. And there's definitely like a long culture of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you bring in like, I don't know, like all the LSD and the pot and like the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And I think people were still kind of boozing a bit, but it seemed like take a different emphasis, different turn a little bit. And then we went through all kinds of phases. But yeah, I think like long term, like, I don't know what people look back on our current period, as being, but it definitely feels like with the rise of like the legalization of marijuana, which I think is a great thing. So many people benefit from that. I'm not a partaker myself necessarily, but so many people get a lot of benefit from that, especially people with illness and different types of things like that. So yeah, it's super interesting. I think the NA beer thing is really funny. I kind of made fun of it. I'll just admit it. Like when I was younger, I'm like, oh, why even bother? Why even bother? It's like drinking decaf. Like, why bother?
Yeah.
And there's, now maybe I'm just showing my age, but I actually realize like, actually it tastes really good. And I'd like to have a taste of beer. And like, I don't drink decaf, just because I don't really need to, but I do like the taste of coffee. So it's kind of like, maybe I could see one day having like a really good decaf, but that actually is a segue, Joe, to my weekend plan. If I could go there.
Yeah, absolutely. We should get back to cycling or something, because right now people are like, what the hell are this? What happened to our show? These guys
what are these guys
They haven't talked about bike shops or cycling or anything.
So this Saturday, I'm pretty excited. I don't know if I told you this Monday.
No.
If
you did, I would have forgotten probably. Yeah.
But Saturday morning, 9 a.m., I'm going to the Chicago Rafa store.
Oh.
And there is a bike ride that is going along the lakefront for like a 10, 15 mile cruise south, and then kind of hanging out around the promontory point, that kind of one
over
spot
by the University of Chicago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So just east of there. So we're going to do that and come back.
Okay.
It's being led, and it's kind of like celebrating the man in town, which is Lachlan Morton.
Oh, is he coming into town?
Yeah.
Oh, really? When is
so
this?
I signed up for it.
He's coming in on Saturday. Is this Saturday, you said?
Yeah,
okay.
He's in for like, so what he has is, and this is the tie-in, because you're like, what the hell are you mentioning this for? The tie-in is he's got his own coffee brand now.
Okay.
Which is an instant coffee, Joe.
Okay. Wow.
Do you remember Senka?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, Taster's Choice.
That's going back.
Yeah.
Taster's Choice.
Yeah.
The old Senka commercials. Oh my God. So anyway, he has apparently his own coffee brand now. It's instant coffee.
Okay.
And because he did, for the folks who don't know, Lockie, as they call him, Lachlan Morton. So he's on Team EF Education. He's a former World Tour cyclist. I believe he's completed the Giro. He actually got 20th in the World Championships of gravel last year. So he's like super legit, like elite level bike racer. But what he's done is, from what I gather, and I can't speak for him, but from what I gather is, he's done like Cape Epic recently, which is that huge, insane like race down in South Africa.
Yeah, he won a race.
He's done all these like
Badlands in Spain.
The Badlands. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, he's done all these like he's ventured into no pun intended, adventuring and like these like really big rides where he just goes like, I'm gonna go do this crazy ride. Like he recently did a really cool thing for Ukraine. So he rode to like the Polish Ukraine border or something like that. I can't remember the details offhand, but he raised like some like legit money, like thousands of dollars for victims and folks coming out of Ukraine, and things like that. So it's always like charity, kind of very goodwill, like from his heart, kind of pegged all these rides. And anyway, you can search him online. He's on like so much cool stuff.
There's a lot of good stuff on YouTube with him. He did a Route 66 ride, and the Badlands with him is available there. And yeah, if you look him up, he's all over the place on YouTube, and it's pretty interesting. That ultra distance or the really long rides, unsupported rides. These, or they're riding 3 days straight and or a week straight with 2 hours of sleep. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's really good at like these ultra kind of events, but he's kind of like made it his own. I don't know if you remember, was it last year or the year before? But he did the tour stage. I'm sorry, he did the Tour de France, but by himself.
Yeah.
And he did it before the actual race, so he did the same exact route every single day, but on his bike. And I believe, and what was really impressive was he didn't just do every mile that the tour did, like the regular racers. He did the connecting. He went from like the finish town to the next start town on his bike. He didn't get like a transfer.
Wow.
So
he did the mileage like in between the stages. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So anyway, and that was for, I believe it was for charity. Like it's always like a great thing, but it's the alternative racing program that EF is really about. So anyway, it like super cool. He's coming into town, and I'm going to join that. It's just going to be a very chill social ride. I'm going to grab my single speed and hang out, drink some instant coffee with Lockie, and it's like a Rafa thing, but I think it's gonna be super cool. Weather should be nice, and I'm kind of excited. So that was my little segue into instant coffee, because I actually started hearing recently a lot about instant coffee. I'm a little bit of a coffee snob. I love a good coffee. But instant coffee, I was like, what? Like, come on. Like, all I can remember is like the really bad Sanka from like back in the day. Even when I was in like Peace Corps, I was always in this situation. It seemed like when I was like always having to drink like instant coffee, and it was so horrible. It just tasted like shit. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, like I could barely drink it. But I was also like so craving the caffeine. I'm like, I'll just drink it.
Well, it makes sense for the bike packing crowd, and it's less stuff. All you need is hot water at that point, or maybe even cold coffee, right? I mean, so I imagine it's it's like gourmet instant coffee. It would be interesting. I'd be interested in trying it. Why not?
No, for sure. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. So it does have a component where you don't have to have it hot. You can have it cold. Yeah. You just like shake it up. And just coincidentally, I saw something recently. So you know how New York Times has that website, the Wirecutter? I don't know if you ever saw it, but it's like the review site. But basically, they just review everything. So they had, I subscribed to it. So they had an article about instant coffee, and I was like, what the hell is this? But I actually ordered their favorite one, or one of their favorite ones, just to try it. So my thing was, I want to try it at home
Mm-hmm.
while I have the opportunity. Normally,
Mm-hmm.
I brew my own coffee, but I want to try it just so that in the future, when I travel, I hate being in a hotel
Mm-hmm.
where I'm getting up. I really like my coffee in the morning, like really, really like it.
Mm-hmm.
I.e., if I don't get it, I go a little berserk. And sometimes it's just like logistically a little annoying. Like I can't get to the Starbucks, or I can't go to the Dunkin' Donuts, or it's like I want that like half hour gap filled.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm like, let me just check out. And usually the coffee in the hotels, kind of sucks. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, I tried it, and it's actually very decent. Now
Okay.
I wouldn't compare it to regular, really good, like well-made coffee,
Mm-hmm.
but in terms of like the reality of it, like it's actually very decent coffee. So I got a brand, I forgot the name of it, but whatever. So I'm interested to try Lockie's. And hopefully we'll have a fun ride, and I'll report back next week. But I'm pretty stoked. It's gonna be fun little jaunt down the lakefront path.
Check us out, Danny. There's like a beverage show. This is all dedicated to alternative beverages. This entire show, non-alcoholic beers, instant coffee, gourmet instant coffees. What's next, Danny? What's next?
This is the reaction to Monday night, I guess.
We're trendsetters here. We got something. People are gonna be like, I heard of those guys were talking about it 3 months ago. Now it's here.
We were so ahead of our time. Yeah, it's gonna be milkshakes without ice cream or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's fun. So that was my little segue, but I'm pretty stoked for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming up Saturday,
that's
9
cool.
a.m.
Well, that sounds like early call for well, I mean, it's for a fun ride, I guess.
So they sent out. I get their email, and so I know the organizer Rory, who's well, I think we've talked about him on the podcast. We got to have him on sometime. He's a super cool dude. One of the fastest local racers around, especially for cyclocross. So he is the organizer. He works for Rafa, and it's actually, I think, how I met him. But super cool dude, and he's organizing it. And so I got the little link. It's like, hey, we're having an event. Sign up. And I just signed up. I'm like, oh, I'll probably check this out. And next thing I knew, it was like capped at 100, and it sold out immediately, so to speak. It's free. You just sign up, but I'm sure there'll be some people showing up who aren't on the list. But yeah, that's Saturday. I'm pretty psyched. Just to see Lockie. I don't know if I'll get to talk to him. I've never met him, but he seems like a really interesting guy. Like he's doing like really cool stuff. So he's kind of like, he was at that high level pro world tour level for quite a while. I think he was having some good success there, and great teammate. Worked for team leaders and stuff like that, and then I think he just really embraced this. Like I remember seeing like Instagram pics of him and like Taylor Finney like years ago, like just doing these, just like before it was the thing. They'd be like riding in their jorts, with their shirts off, or like a flannel with the sleeves cut off, just like cruising like in the desert, and just like kind of the ultra romance thing, right?
Except
kind of like that thing.
Yeah, except in the competitive, it's like this alternative competitive world, because they are, at the end of the day, like they're competing, and there's racing going on. It's just this different scene. He was living in Girona. So I've been kind of aware of, he's been on my radar for a long time, and he, participated in this Badlands race, and I've got some friends in Spain that are involved with that, and they sponsored it for a while, and so I think that's probably one of the first places I really started to take note of him. But I'd seen him, and I was like, well, who's this guy? And he's big on that, in that scene, in that world. He's pretty well known. That's EF's angle within there. Probably that's why they're still paying him, because he's big in that world. He's got a following. Those videos that he does and the stuff that he appears in are pretty popular. And he's an interesting dude.
He really is.
I like his career. I like what he's what he's done, like where he's gone. And, it's like guys like Peter Stetina and some other, big time bike racers. I think we talked about Nicolas Roche, like guys are,
Mhm.
these ex-pros are now getting into gravel racing. Alejandro Valverde was doing, like, he did some
Yeah,
sort of gravel race, so everybody's
and those
jumping.
round shorts.
Yeah, they're all getting into this alternative, race scene, this gravel scene, this, non-road scene. And this guy's been out there, he's been doing it for a long time. I would say, he's probably one of the first pros to make that crossover, and, wear like a pro jersey in that world. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Alex Howes is like one of his little sidekicks.
Mm-hmm.
They hang out a lot. He's recently retired from like the World Tour racing and
Yeah.
now embraced, kind of like Ted King, and there's a bunch of these cats.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very interesting. Like, I think in general, I use the word decline softly. Like, I don't think it's a plummet, but the decline of like kind of like classic road racing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the data to back that up, so it's just an impression. But the decline of that, but also the simultaneous kind of like rise of this like alternative racing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very interesting, and he's one of the more charismatic figures. He's a very low key, like super chill guy.
Mm-hmm.
Seemingly, I don't know him, I haven't met him, but his persona is like super chill. But he seems like quite like, I don't use the word in a cheesy way, but he seems a little deep, a little philosophical. Like, he seems to be like really. I see a lot of his social posts, and he seems to have like a lot of just like a lot of good vibes and wanting to do cool stuff. But the thing is, he's also like still like a badass bike racer. Like, he like did great at Cape Epic, and he did like 20th. Like, Vanderpool, I think, was like on the podium at World Championships of Gravel, and Lucky was like top 20. Like, that's legit. Like, he's still like a legit guy. He's not some like stoner out there like on fat tires, like, yo man, let's bike camp. Like, he's like a legit thing. So, but I think he's really one of, and there are a few others for sure, but he's one of the dudes who's like out there, like
he's one of the premier
literally exploring
dudes.
And pushing like what can we do with this? Like, what's new, what's different? And I think he's really doing, like, that thing they did with the tour, I thought was like brilliant. Like, honestly, there's so many stages of the tour that are just boring as hell. Half of them are super awesome and half are just boring as hell. And like, let's see what Lockheed's doing. I have a different tab open. They had that like GPS thing, you could track him. Where's Lockheed every day? And it's like, you see his post, like, that was almost as interesting as the tour. Like, that was a genius PR thing. Like, whoever invented that, like, kudos to you. Like, it was so cool. And I don't know if you remember the pictures, but he was riding like in sandals. I think he had SPD sandals. And at some point his like feet got all ripped up. So he had like band-aids upon band-aids and bandages like on his ripped up, like, feet and stuff. Like, anyway, he's done like really cool stuff. So I'm pretty stoked to like, hopefully I get to like shake his hand and like maybe take a picture with him on Saturday. Taste some of his coffee.
Yeah, move up to the front.
I'd like to just be like, thank you for what you do. Like, cool, man. Like, this is fun. This is great. I like what you're doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wouters and stuff. I would draw Wouters' name. So work your way right up there.
Hello, I'm Stene Wandel from Belgium, and you are listening to the Bike Shop Society podcast.
Joe, do you happen to know what else is starting on Saturday?
I think that's the Giro.
Take a wild guess.
That's the Giro, right? I mean, I'm completely confused because the Vuelta is going on too. The women's Vuelta, the Giro. It's like it's all everything is kind of overlapping, and there's just all sorts of stuff going on right now. So I had seen that the Vuelta was happening, and I'm like, the Vuelta, they moved that back to May, and it was the Vuelta Femme, and everything that's going on over there. Yeah. So
it's a little hard to keep track of for sure. I think it's a great problem to have that we have like so much more, seeming like so much more women's racing.
It's much more.
It's great.
Yeah. It's and I gotta say, I've been paying more attention to it. It's like it's on my radar. And I mean, mostly because I've been paying attention to a lot of the Movistar stuff. I think they're doing such a great job with all their some of their social media stuff and the stuff that they're putting up on YouTube, and they really do a lot to feature the women. And I gotta say, I've warmed up to them. And not only
Nice.
that, Danny, just purely because I'm a guy and of that era, of a certain era. Those women are cute.
Sure.
Like like
Yeah.
like
Hey,
like these bike racer women are how do I put this?
that
Well, you
doesn't
know what?
hurt.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt. I mean, and some of them,
I'll have to say it. A lot of the guy
you know what?
races are cute too.
And they're playing it up a little bit, and I like it. I like that
Oh,
they're,
are they?
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, they, yeah. I think that I don't know that they're necessarily. No, there's definitely a couple of them that just they're playing it up a little bit, and they're just kind of they're having fun with it, with their their place in the world, and it's cool, it's just good. It's good. It's it's uh it's fun to see women cycling kind of current and with the times and with what they're doing in the
Mhm.
sport, and it's really interesting. It's kind of it's fun what they got going on there, and then it leads you to the racing, and you're like, wow, the racing is very competitive, and fun to watch.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It was
I mean,
like,
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Like the women's racing in general, if I have to pick one or the other,
Yeah.
usually women's racing is from just a sheer race action
Yep.
point of view is more exciting than the men's racing. Meaning, like generally the men's racing. Again, this is a huge overgeneralization, but just from like the seat of my pants, I will say that in general, there's less action overall in terms of like winning moves, attacks, etc. From my perception, watching women's racing just seems to have more and more of that, and there are various reasons for that, which we can get into. We talked about previously how there's only been 3, Paris-Roubaix for women, and so there's no real like set script, and so every year, it's only 3 years in, but every year it's like a little bit different. So that's part of it too. But yeah, I'll watch women's racing, men's racing. I watch them all. I don't even discern anymore. Like if it's on, I'm like watching it. So it's super fun. So I'm super stoked.
Yeah,
it
used to be quite like just an afterthought. Women's racing. You just kind of something that you would maybe get a blurb about somewhere. And
that, yeah,
yeah, and now it's like, I was confused whether the Vuelta was going to like the like the Vuelta's going, and just because of how much buzz there was about the race. So it's great.
Yeah. No, so it's cool. And as you said, the women's Vuelta a España is going on. Mariana Voss, I think, has won a couple stages now. So that's been really cool. I haven't actually caught any of it. It's on at a time when I have meetings at work, so I'm a little bummed. But I've been watching some highlights. And I don't know. I'm a big fan of Mariana Voss. She's amazing. She just crushes every discipline: road, cyclocross, mountain biking, track, you name it.
She's kind of like a Wood.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
she totally is. But yeah, getting back to the Giro. So the first Grand Tour of 2023 starts Saturday. And I'm really stoked. Just super quick. So it looks like Remco, Evenepoel is going to be fighting with your guy, Joe
Roglic, right?
Roglic, yes. And that's going to be the big 2-up battle. Of course, as we know, being fans of the sport for so long, like it could totally blow up. It could be a very different situation, a very different script, depending on how the first week goes. Unfortunately, sometimes folks crash out, they get sick. COVID apparently has really struck the Giro this year. I think as of right now, I think Jumbo has lost 4 riders to COVID, so they'd have 4 replacements. I don't know if you saw those headlines.
Is that still a thing? COVID?
Yeah, dude,
it's
back,
crazy. Really?
It's crazy. And I saw all kinds of stuff online about it, but basically, there were. Imagine having your team. I don't know if they have 7 or 8 riders at this point, but imagine losing 3 or 4 of your riders and they had to be replaced last minute. I mean, that doesn't bode well for the team. But Roglic, as far as I know, as of right now, Thursday evening, as we're recording, is still in the race to start. And then we have Remco. So it'd be like that's the big headline, 2-up battle. But there are some other riders who could, get in the mix there and be interesting in the mountains. Of course, I don't know. Beyond all that, I just love the Giro. This year is interesting because it's got 3 time trials and they've got uphill time trials mixed in, Joe. It's going to be really cool. The penultimate stage, the second to last stage, is an uphill time trial finish. It's going to be super cool. There's like a really cool course. The first week has got a mix of like climbing and flats and time trials. Like, I don't know, the Giro's, I know I sound campy, but the Giro is so fun. Like it really messes with the script. If you're looking at like, the Tour and the Vuelta, which are great races unto themselves, don't get me wrong, but something about the Giro, I just feel like just from the racecraft, the race course, like the stages, I don't know. I'm a fanboy. I love the Giro.
Yeah, because they're doing. It's not a prologue. The first stage is an actual time trial, right? I mean, it's a proper stage.
Yep.
They're not doing a double on that first day, right? It's strictly time trial and then the next day stage 2. Is that what they're doing?
I love that you said that because that brings back memories. Mm-hmm. Remember when they had double stages?
Oh yeah, double. Yeah, back in the day, man. Yeah, double stages.
Crazy.
Yeah,
I love that. I want to ask Killian over at GCM, but when was the last Grand Tour where we had a double stage? So yeah, you're right though. But the first, the opening stage is a time trial. Mm-hmm. It's flat, but it has like an uphill finish.
Okay.
So it's like this little snake bite in the end. Mm-hmm. So that'll put someone legit. I'm thinking like probably GC contender in the
pink,
in the pink jersey, the Maglia Rosa. So pretty early on, and obviously there's always like the team scheming, like we got one shot to get in the jersey. I love that. That's one of my favorite things about Grand Tours now is like I always look for this like real specificity. So you can imagine teams like scheming, like, okay, we got one shot because after like the first stage we have no chance of getting in the jersey, or maybe the second or third, but that's it. So it's like, how can one of our team guys, we don't have a GC guy, right? But we have someone who can maybe like crush it on the first, second, or third stage, kind of like a Magnus Cort type guy, or like a Cancellara type guy. Like they're never going to win the GC, but maybe there's an opportunity because of the way the course is, that first stage, that second stage, or something, time bonuses, something like that. Like Vanderpool at the Tour, or was it 2 years ago, year ago? Anyway, so I'm always interested for that. But yeah, that first one's like mostly flat. I think it's about 20K, and then it has an uphill finish. But then there's like other time trials. There's like 3 in the race. So a lot of people are saying it really, suits Vanderpool. But, Roglic, your boy Roglic, Joe, man, I mean, he's no slouch in the time trial. So plenty of climbing. And of course, we know like just spike racing, like anything can happen. But I won't go into like the super nerdiness, but I think we're in for a great race. If you look through some of these stages, like these profiles are insane.
Yeah,
like,
are they going up to Zoncolan? The Zocolan? Are they doing the Zocolan?
I don't know, but that's that famous one. I don't think they are. I don't think they are this year.
They've always got they've always got something crazy going on. I know that it was kind of this for a time the Vuelta and the Giro were kind of there was like a duel going on. They were always trying to find the craziest climb, something that they heard some sheep herder, there was a hill somewhere, they go find it and get the local municipality to pave it, at least part of it, so they could go race it, Remember there were, was it Giro or Vuelta where they were like, they ended up on gravel for a long period of time.
Yeah.
The racers were complaining because it wasn't even gravel. It was like, it was like rock and stone. Like they ended up doing like mountain biking, and the racers were complaining because they were like, you need proper mountain bike for this stuff that they had us going up.
What the hell is this?
Yeah.
No, 100%. Yeah. I know Bernal, I think it was last year before his accident. Was it the Giro or maybe the year before? But Bernal, I remember Bernal winning like a mountaintop finish on gravel. It looked like champagne gravel, but But it was, it was still gravel.
I don't think we're
but-
far. I don't think we're far from seeing if they can figure it out logistically, because I think it would be really difficult. It probably it'd be a lot of stress on the teams, but where you have a stage or two which are gravel stages, like where you need a proper gravel bike, like a not being able to do it on a road bike, or actually road bikes are starting to straddle this gravel, this place now where road bikes are able to accommodate wider tires. It has to be a part of it in the future. I think just the way what I sense at the bike shop, especially like what people are buying, the type of bikes that people are buying. Like nobody's buying a road bike, Danny. Nobody comes in and wants a proper road bike these days. Everybody wants some sort of at least a gravel capable road bike, if not a full on gravel bike. But nobody's like, give me a race bike, and at some point I see that the bike companies having to, accommodate that in the racing scene. I think that there's going to be some move towards that and some sort of pressures on those on the people to do that. And kind of like how the Olympics has skateboarding at some point and breakdancing. You know what I mean? Like, it's like if that's what the kids are doing and they have to keep interest going in the sport.
Right.
Like I see, I see at some point where they're going to be like, you know what, we're going to get rid of, we're going to get rid of some, traditional sport and introduce,
well,
this, right?
that's how curling got in, probably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
At some point, some Canadians like, hey, we got to get some curling in the Olympics there, eh?
Yeah.
Like, who would have thunk that? Like, come on.
No.
You have like downhill slalom, you have like luge, like, hey, how about some curling? Let's push this big heavy thing across the ice. That's so crazy. So the last thing I would just say about the Giro, I'm very excited. So Grand Tour, love it. 3 weeks. Giro, the Tifosi, the crazy fans, the food, the culture. I love it. So Giro's so close to my heart. I love it. But if you look in that link I sent you, Joe, they have a profile, all the key stages, and stage 20. It's the final climb of the whole Giro, and the funny thing about the image they have here for stage 20 is the final climb is so steep that its name actually doesn't fit into the road book that the teams get. And so I don't even know the gradient, but it's bonkers. It looks super bonkers. So that's the second to last stage. So the final one will be like a procession into Milan, and it'll be like the sprint stage, I presume. But yeah, that mountain, I just love that they're doing.
Wow.
I love a mountain TT, Joe.
Yep.
I love a mountain TT. I know it rules out like 99.9% of the contenders, but
no, I love
if someone has a bad day, if they lose like a minute or two, if they have a mechanical, if you have a flat like mid climb, like if it's tight, like remember Roglic and Pogacar, right? At the Tour, was it 3 years ago, where Roglic was done. He's like, I've won the Tour. Then Pogacar comes up. He's like, yo,
yeah,
I got one last hurrah. Let's do this. I like to ride my bike. And he crushes it and beats Roglic on the second to last stage. So anyway, we'll see what happens. But if you look at some of those profiles, like pretty wicked, pretty epic. And anyway, I'm really stoked. Cavendish will be there for the sprinters. He'll be obviously looking to hone some good form for the Tour, try to break his record. We'll see how long he goes in the Giro. A lot of these guys do like a week and they pull out. That seems to be the norm these days. But who else we got? We got Theo Gegenhardt from Ineos. We got Geraint Thomas. We've got my home team, Bad News Bears, EF Education. We got Uran. He's the stalwart, but they got some other good guys on there too. Anyway, I think it's just gonna be fun, man. I'm looking forward to the breakaways, the stage wins, the overall. I really want to see, one of the dominant kind of storylines I keep seeing is like, so you got Roglic, who's way older than Evenepoel.
Mm-hmm.
They're both very talented. I think on paper, I think most people would agree that Evenepoel is like stronger, like faster rider. Not by like a huge amount, but he's stronger and faster. But everyone keeps talking about the psychological aspect, the mental game. And Evenepoel is so like capricious and he's so like moody.
Mm-hmm.
And he either rides like super high or he's like really like mad at something, like just loses his composure. Whereas Roglic, he's had like when he lost to Pogacar, right? He has shown like really great composure, maturity.
He's very stoic.
Yeah, very stoic. He's gone through adversity.
Yep.
So I kind of love that because I don't think they're like super far apart.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I would give the hat tip for the time trials to Evenepoel by like a little bit, but Roglic has beaten Evenepoel this year, at least once. I think it was whatever stage race that was earlier in the year. But anyway, like this mental game that's going to be going on, right?
Yeah.
Like you see Evenepoel pop and like lose his shit basically, like for like relatively sometimes small things. And I get there's pressure. Anyway, that's just the storyline. Like I'm really, really tuned into. Like I want to see if like Roglic can kind of like get into his head a little bit and just like like test him. So that's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, I think the experience in the Grand Tours. I mean, obviously advantage to Roglic in that. Is going to probably come into play quite a bit. In something like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it should be fun. It's really come up fast, the Giro. It seems, I mean, it's like all of a sudden, I think part of it has to do with just you were out of town for a long time. It's been a really crappy spring here in Chicago so far. And all of a sudden here it is, right? We're in May and the Giro's happening and it seems like it was winter 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's exciting. It always kind of a signal of summer starting. So hopefully, it'll bring a little good weather our way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty stoked.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't talked about the shop. I do apologize, but
no.
Do we have a little update from the shop? Like how did the week go?
It's been.
I know it started with the firecracker.
Yeah, it's all been a bit like I think I mentioned last time. It's been a blur. We've been busy, really busy. The people are buying bikes. I've had the new mechanics starting, and which has been good. It's great. It's allowed us to be more busy because now that I have people to do some specialty work, I'm selling specialty work, and accepting and selling specialty work. Doing a lot of the things that I haven't been able to do the last couple of years that I didn't have help. A lot of custom wheel builds and things like that, which means that I've just been I've been busy. I've been busy like sourcing parts, getting things together. And I'd kind of forgotten what it was like to have to, while it's fun to have people, then that means you have to manage people, and you got to feed them work and make sure that they're busy, and they got things to do, and ordering things. The last year and a half, couple of years, it's really just been me. So everything at my pace, and I didn't have to really worry about anybody else. So it's just kind of that transition back to running the shop versus kind of doing everything myself, and it's been cool. It's also fun that I can go to like a catalog and a distributor and find things and be really proactive and kind of pitch things to customers. It's like, hey, let's build you a cool set of wheels. Let's get these hubs. Like we can get these rims and build it this way, and even some custom bikes now. Like I'm in the process of building some. At least one nice custom bike, and I got a couple kind of on the line right now, and so like searching for parts and putting all that together, and it's fun, but it just takes it takes time, to go and like source things and call manufacturers and try and pull things together. So yeah, I'll just getting back, just doing that, something that I've done for a long time, but I haven't. It's really been 3 years since we've done any of that kind of work, and so just getting the lay of the land, meeting new people. There's people that were, where I used to know people at certain companies. Now they're gone, and so there's also been a lot of turnover in our industry. So like just meeting new reps and just trying to figure out where people have landed after a few years. It's I don't know, and trying to keep up with everything else. There's a big show out in California.
Sea Otter?
Sea Otter. Yeah, it's become the huge, one of the huge bike industry shows, outdoor show, but huge bike show. And so companies will debut a lot of product out there and show a lot of product, and keeping an eye on all of that stuff. See what's coming out of there, because now it's become something that I have to kind of keep an eye on. There's people pay attention. A lot of consumers, a lot of like regular customers are watching that stuff now, and I'm going to be getting questions about a lot of the things that they've seen on
YouTube.
On YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah.
you got every influencer.
That's where I've been watching a lot of it myself. So.
Yeah, every influencer's out there. Every magazine has some, someone covering that thing. So, they're people will come in and start asking about that stuff. I already have somebody looking at a set of those classified. I don't know if you're familiar with the classified hubs and classified wheels with all the internal 2-speed basically. So you kind of get rid of the front derailleur, and instead of having that front derailleur, you've got this hub that has basically 2 gears in it, and it works with your cassette. So instead of having, a combination of a front derailleur and say, 11 in the back, you've got the internal 2 times 11. So, it's,
right.
Yeah. Just interesting stuff, trying to figure out how all that stuff works, trying to get a hold of one of those hubs, which has been kind of tricky and difficult.
Yeah.
Called the company, couple of times and hit them on their email, and they've been unresponsive. So,
you better get Hank on the scene.
Yeah, I won't bug him for any of that.
Pull some of his clout.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
he's got so much clout.
So yeah, no, things are good.
Yeah.
Good, very good at the shop. Just kind of, we're getting through it. It's been a busy spring, so it's
and now we have some really nice weather.
Yeah, this weekend is
great weather.
Yeah, it's promising to be, I would expect it's going to be gangbusters there after a little bit of downtime, weather-wise, it was not great, but
yeah.
I think this weekend will probably be pretty busy at the shop, so.
Yeah, today was near 70. I was out for a short ride. It was sunny. It was beautiful, and everyone was kind of out running and walking and riding and this and that. It really felt good. And some of the restaurants near us, I took a walk after work, and there were like people eating outdoors. Like that was kind of like the first real feel for that. So yeah, pretty exciting, pretty cool. Just about Sea Otter, I've never been to Sea Otter, which is kind of funny. Like I've had invites and I just never took them up. But looking at all the videos, like there's like this deluge of like YouTube videos I'm getting from like, because the algorithm, you click on one, they send you like a million.
Yeah.
But there have been some good ones. And it looks really like fun. I think I actually might want to do it maybe next year or the year after. Just go out, no pressure, not as a journalist, just like, go have fun, check it out, because they have a bunch of, as you know, like events around it too. So it's like this big bike show in like the desert, whatever. There's like a million like tents and like booths and whatever setups, and it's literally thousands of like people. And then there's like bike races around it, and then just like bike rides and like all this fun stuff and parties and what have you. So I've never been. I don't know if you've been, Joe, but I definitely would like to go. And if you want to go. If you can steal away for like 3-4 nights and we fly out there, I would totally go out there. Like it looks really fun, and The main takeaway, and again, this is just from gleaning a handful of videos, but the main takeaway I got was, again, it probably speaks to the channels I subscribe to on YouTube, because I do watch quite a lot of YouTube actually. But it looks like high end, like all round bikes. So bikes you can ride on the road, gravel, nothing super new, but really an emphasis on these like higher end bikes, especially bikes that have like cool little features, whether it's just the travel bikes where, what do you call them? You can unscrew the
couplers, the CNC
frames,
couplers.
the couplers, the couplers. Like some of that I've seen, some custom paint jobs. Nothing kind of new. Everything that's old is new again. Kind of theme. It looked pretty fun, looked pretty cool.
That's how.
Yeah,
it's funny.
I might want to check it out.
It's funny how the algorithm works. Like I've been watching a lot of like bike packing stuff, so I'm getting fed a lot of the bike packing stuff. I'm getting the steel bike builders and people doing kind of crazy thing in the bike packing world, and bags and things like that. It's like top 10 products for bike packing and and for me right now, I think for a lot of bike shops that's a scene that's blowing up. At least for me, I was kind of the fat bike shop in town for a long time, and a lot of my customers are kind of not that non-competitive side. I do have a lot of a lot of people like that, and so that world is something that I've been paying a lot of attention to, and it's really interesting to see what's going on there, as well as like on the higher end, carbon fiber racing stuff.
For sure.
I mean, I have some renewed interest in all of that, some of the lighter weight, kind of performance oriented stuff.
I was looking at all these like crazy bikes, right? Like, I think it was Dave Arthur who does like the Just Ride Bike channel or whatever. He does some good stuff. Ben Delaney, one of those guys. They're just like doing these like super gorgeous, like, close up shots of like these like high end like gravel bikes and all road bikes or whatever. I mean, these bikes are like $10, $12, $15,000. Like it's crazy. Gorgeous. And I was just gonna say, like, I'm looking at these like, I could never afford this bike.
No,
I would never be able to pay retail for it, even with a discount, like the pro deal. Like I could. So it just like made me think, like, who's really buying these bikes? Like, is it? I mean, it must be the wealthy and the ultra wealthy. Like, I just don't know. Like, a fair play to them. If they can afford it, great, good for you. But I mean, these bikes are like $10,000, $12,000, $15,000.
Yeah.
It just always like strikes me like how I'm just like watching some of these videos, and I love it. Who doesn't love like a really cool, nice, sexy bike? But I always find myself at some point like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait, how much is this bike?
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy. I'm not saying they're not worth it, and I'm not hating on them. I'm just saying, like, holy moly! Like, for me to spend $5,000 on a bike out of my own pocket is like, that's a decision I got to make over a long time.
That's a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money for a normal, for a normal person. I mean, that's truly unnecessary. Just to ride and enjoy yourself. I mean, you don't have to spend that much. I mean, you could spend $3,500 on a bike and have a lot of bike.
Oh, for sure, sure. I've been in a few situations in the past couple of years, like before I got my current bike. So I was kind of like in some nicer bike shops, kind of like bigger bike shops that had like really nice high end stuff and like mid range stuff too. But I went. This happened like a few times. I went in and, I try not to be like, oh, I know bikes, I'm in the industry. I don't do any of that stuff. I just go in and I'm just like, hey, how's it going? If salespeople come up, greet you, that's cool. How are you today, etc. Then I start like poking around. I pretty quickly, I know my way around a shop more or less. Even if I haven't been to one, you can kind of quickly figure it out. I pretty much pretty quickly like get to like the bikes I'm really interested in. Like, I narrow it down to the 3 or 4 or 5 bikes. Because usually a lot of shops, they don't have a lot of higher end bikes. So, but some ones that kind of do have at least a handful. So anyway, I just remember being in these shops and I'm looking at a Caledonia from Cervelo. I'm looking at a Tarmac from Specialized. I'm looking at a Madone from Track, what have you. I can't tell you how many times I've been like kind of like standing there. I may pull the bike out and just kind of like lift it, feel it, kind of like look at it a little bit. I can't tell you how many times I've had salespeople walk up and just, friendly enough, like, hey, how's it going? How are you? They don't know anything about the bikes, and they don't ask me any questions. I'm not trying to hate on them. I'm just saying it's really like kind of like surprising how they're not trained. They don't really, I don't even know if they know bikes. Like, and again, I'm not trying to pull like something like I know bikes or, I'm always just very much like, hey, how's it going? Like, oh, I was just, just kind of looking at some of your high end stuff here. I'm kind of back in the market. And I'm not exaggerating. I've literally had this experience a few times where they're just like, they kind of like, oh yeah, that's a really good bike right there. That thing's really light. Or that's a great bike. Oh, that one, that's a really good bike right there. Like the most basic, like whatever you want to call it. I don't want to call it BS. I want to be favorable. Like, but the most like, I don't know, just like unhelpful, kind of uninformative. Like,
yeah, it's
like
hard.
they're literally just like saying stuff, and I'm kind of like, I never call them on it. I'm always just like, oh, okay, I see it. But like they say like the most like kind of basic things about the bike, like, oh, that's a really good one.
That's on sale. Like, Cannondale's running a. You know what? It happens in my store, Danny, and I've tried to change. I attempt to. They're younger kids. They're in their 20s. One of the girls is in her 20s, super nice and very helpful. But not a salesperson. Not a great salesperson, no matter how much information I give her, make her read the website or, it's just, it's just, there's, I think you and I are sales, we can be I'm a good salesperson. I think I got years and years of experience and I realize now, not to brag or anything. I'm a good salesperson. I know it. And I try to remember that when I see people that are not good, I try to be like, I've been doing this since I was 17 years old. And so like, yeah, no, I know, and it kind of goes back to what I was saying when people walk into the shop. It's like, the shop's not very impressive, but what I know is really impressive, and that's what I'm counting on to sell what I'm selling. It's just like, man, I can sell you a bike I don't even have in the shop. I'm showing you a picture on the website and telling you that this is going to work for you, and people are trusting me to bring in the bike and build the bike and all of that stuff, yeah, I mean, I had a kid in the shop, who he was a pretty good salesman, but he wasn't into bikes enough. I'm like, you're going to be a great banker or something, but he didn't have that. You really need a kind of a unique combination of like being able to be a good salesperson and also geek out about bicycles, and enjoy bikes. And that's really hard to find.
I guess what was kind of puzzling, like if it's just like a mom and pop shop, like, look, I go in like, hey, everything's cool. Like, I just want to see what you got. Thank you for your help. But I was in some like higher end places that had bikes that were, like the Specialized Athos, like some of those like crazy $14,000 bikes, $12,000 bikes, $10,000 bikes, $8,000 bikes. Like, I was just like, who's kind of running the show? Like, who knows the bikes here? Like, I mean, and it's not an age thing, but like the people who were helping were like, they were like young kids. And I wasn't trying to show them up. I wasn't trying to like show off my knowledge. Obviously I know bikes, but I was just like, oh yeah, I'm just kind of interested in this like 58, Caledonia. Like for example, I was looking at the Caledonia and the Domane. I was caught between those two as my final two bikes. I narrowed it down from like 8 and I went with the the Domane. But they're like, oh yeah, Caledonia. First of all, they couldn't pronounce Caledonia,
Mm-hmm.
which if you don't know is Latin for Scotland. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm looking at the Caledonia. It's got this pretty paint job. I really love that. But it's like I've read a lot of reviews and like they were literally like not saying anything in return. I'm like,
Yeah.
like they just like had nothing to say. And hey, look, maybe it's a part-time job. They do other stuff that they could, but like I was saying, they could be selling vacuum cleaners or sofas, like whatever. It's like it was just like this object. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, real light.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
I love that color. Yeah. Well,
it was just kind of like I just walked away. Kind of, I went back to the car. I was kind of like a little sad. I'm like, oh man, like I wanted a good convo, like someone who's like, yeah, this one, wheelbase, geometry.
Mm-hmm.
It's for like this price point. It comes with like really great wheels or crappy wheels or whatever. Just give me like something. Like this is they have a new version of this coming out. You can save on what? Just give me something. It was just like nothing, and I was just like, oh man, I'm kind of sad.
Yeah. Oh, and that's kind of going back to bike store versus bike shop, right? It's like the place where you just go and buy a bike, or the place where you hang out and actually learn about bikes and learn about cycling. And that's why I'm kind of excited about what's happening right now for places like us, and that we're. People there's a consumer out there that doesn't really who like you that has gone into these really big places and found that nobody knows what the hell they're talking about and are looking for a small person like a small shop like me that really knows what they're talking about. And they can help them, can give them some real information and get them a bike, because at the end of the day, I can get you a bike. I can get you I can get you the perfect bike for you. I may not have it hanging around in the shop, but I think that there's a little bit of a return to that. I think, people are kind of burned out from that experience that you had, and they're looking for people like me. And I sense that, I sense it because I pretty much talk to everybody who's looking for a bike that comes into my bike shop. So, I hear it, I have a back and forth with them, and they're telling me that essentially, like I've been in 3 shops, I've gone to these places, I've called these places. Sometimes I get people come down to the shop just from a conversation on the phone, it's because, whatever, I was able to answer their questions, and, I tell them right up front.
They know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm like, don't come in here expecting to find the bike that you want. Come on in and I want to size you. Let's double check and make sure that that's going to be the right size for you. Let's talk a little bit about what you want to do.
Have like a real conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they come in and they're nice, and it's exactly the kind of customer that I want to work with. And if they're coming in, they want to work with me, and it's great. That's the ideal situation for me, and I think for a lot of shops right now. I think a lot of people are starting to work like that in the industry, and it tends to be shops my size or smaller shops, and because let's face it, like you just said, there's not enough people to go around that know this information. So the shop can't be this giant shop because there's not 3 or 4 of you guys. You're lucky to have one person in a bike shop right now that knows as much as I do. And they can do the things that I do. And so to find like some giant shop that has 3 or 4 salespeople that really know what they're talking about is really, really difficult. So,
yeah. And I totally get like so much stuff is online now, and direct to consumer is growing, and there's all of this. Like I get all that, like, but it was still nonetheless pretty kind of like, wow, like these kids, like, and I'm not just trying to make it about the kids, but just like some of these people like owning these shops, they have like really high-end bikes on the floor, but I bet you a $10 bill, like they couldn't tell me if that bike was aluminum or carbon.
Yeah. I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be surprised.
And hey, and that's fine. Like I get it, but it's also like, so much about the bike. I guess I would just rather have someone come out and be like, hey, let us know if you have any questions. We will try to answer them for you. As opposed to just like, oh, that's a good one. That's real light.
Yeah.
That's real fast.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm like, wait, are we supposed to laugh now? Oh, that was serious. Like, sorry, I don't want to be a dick, but I'm just like, oh my God.
It's definitely one thing that I pound on the kids all the time. I'm like, don't make anything up. Don't, if you don't like, don't make it up. Don't, because usually, like you walking into the store, you know about the bike. If you're there to look at that bike, you've watched the video, you've read the website, you know more about that bike probably than I do.
Yeah,
Because
there's like a million reviews. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, you know a lot more. I can help you with certain things. I can help you with fit. I can help with certain questions. What benefits do you get from that, or this drivetrain, or what are my experiences with that,
or like upgrading or swapping out parts.
Yeah, exactly. But oftentimes the consumer, especially when they're looking at something that nice and something very specific, they're already loaded with knowledge before they walk in.
Yep.
They already know more than me. So I'm like,
right.
I want to know where they're at and how much information they have already, because I don't want to,
Right.
you already have a really good idea of what you want. Now I can tell you if that's a good bike for you or not. I'm like, that's not, you're 60 years old. What do you want to, what do you want a tarmac SL for? You break your back or something, I will do that, like try to get them on I don't know, if I sold Specialized, I'd try to get them on a Roubaix or something a little bit more upright, something that would fit them better.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm there for. That's what I see that's what I see myself doing. But
Sweet, man. We'll leave it there. Always great to catch up.
Well, yeah. Have a good night. Thanks everybody for listening. Keep writing. We didn't even get to the letters. We got a couple of letters, and don't hesitate to write. We'll catch up with everybody next time. Adios.
Venga.